Yo, Joe, talking comics. Here's your host. It's A Real American Brian.
And we're back. So recently I did a video and I talked about how getting books that you love is all that you should do in the hobby. Like, indeed. Find things that bring you joy rather than trying to invest in it. But if you want to do that, that's cool. That's your way of doing it too. I'm not judging you. But there's another way of doing it, just getting the books that you love. So I wanted to bring on Jonny again and have him share some of his graded books that he loves.
Hold on. Oh, I was muted. Hold on. There we go. Unmute. Volume. All right. I'm back. I don't know what happened there. I was unmuted. I was muted. I love that other option. Buying graded books. You know what you're going to get. I think about, when you and I used to play tabletop games and I would buy things painted. When you buy something painted, you know what you're getting. When you hope somebody paints something for you, you don't know what you're going to get. So I guess the question is gambling or sure thing, right? Because
and sometimes you pay a little bit more for the sure thing, but you know what you're going to get.
You know what you're going to get. So today I've got 3 books that we'll call it like a show and tell, but more of a slab and tell, if you will. So it's going to be 3 books that I really like the cover and my slab, and I'll show it off. And I'll talk briefly about the book and why it's something you should read. First one up is a comic called Saga. This is a version cover of issue number 50. It's got the whole family here. A great story. Some people say Star Wars meets Game of Thrones or something. But everybody says that kind of stuff. And I'm probably going to say that again for another book in a second. Anyway, I don't really like those kind of this meets this thought. But it is a really cool story about somebody from a world and a moon. And the people on each of those are at war with each other at all times. And what happens when one is forced to spend time with the other and they spend a little too much time and decide, hey, I like you, let's make a baby. And that's and I think that's what they even said. And then all of a sudden, this little girl, Hazel, was born, and the adventures are, this is not, you find all this out in the first issue. But all of a sudden, they're on the run because when you have wings over here, you're pretty easily identifiable as from that planet. And when you got horns, you're also very easily identifiable from that moon. The 2 different, I would say planets, but a planet and moon that are always at war, that how dare you, be with a person like that. So they're always on the run. And the story is told from a combination of Hazel's point of view as a kid. And by the way, this started in, I think, 2012. And now she is about 12. Like, it's like real time. So it started off when she was born. And now 12 years later, in real times, she's now 12 years old in the comic. So it's her point of view. It's talking about her parents and her life and all these crazy adventures. But then also you get to see and hear what's going on. It's got some amazing characters. That's, I guess, where the Star Wars side comes in with the different alien species throughout the galaxy. It is of an adult nature. So maybe that's where the Game of Thrones comparison comes in. I don't really know other comparisons of that, besides being an epic adventure that has some nudity and language in there, but it's done very well. One of my favorite all-time comics. And I wanted to pick up a slab that, one, kind of something I thought was cool. There were some other cooler covers, but some of them got very pricey. This one I think was $90, I believe, and maybe 100. There's somewhere around there. But knowing it was a 9.8, knowing it was issue 50, virgin cover, and it's got the whole family there. Really great looking cover. I liked it a lot. It is something that Brian K. Vaughan, by the way, Fiona Staples, the artist, if you want to get into that, I suggest you go after the hardcovers first. You can get the whole the whole first run before they started up again. They were off for 3 years. That's when I got into it. It was during those 3 years. They just restarted about a year and a half ago. But if you want to get 1 through 55, you can get the 3 hardcovers, or there's one soft cover that has them all, and it's only like $50, and you're getting 55 issues, $40 maybe. Super affordable to get into. But I know I've recommended that one to you before, Brian. You got to check that one out. You would love it. I know you have a list, but I think you
Yeah.
should put it higher on the list.
It probably will be. I mean, the more I think about it, the more it's going to get read eventually. I don't know.
Okay. It's going to get read. Look at the cover, has a baby enjoying a meal. I mean, come on. What's better than that, right?
Nothing more natural than that.
No, and am I even allowed to show that on your channel?
Yeah, I think so, because there's no nipple. I think the nipple.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, there's I mean, very graphic right off the bat. I'm just saying. You know, when you're getting into this one's not for the kids.
One of the things I really like about your slab book there too is that, you know, it looks like a family portrait. So you put that on the wall and it just looks like you have a picture of a family on your wall.
That great point, you know? Yeah. It does look, I mean, could you imagine like if you were selling your house and you had that up like with your family pictures? Or if it was just only pictures from this comic on your wall and like the people were looking at your house are like, is this who we're buying the house from? Yeah, they're obviously on the run. They're not supposed to be together. So yeah, issue 50, great cover. I had a couple I wanted to choose from, but this one was the best that was also in my price range. There was a few others, but were quite a bit more. So Saga, definitely check that out. Next up, a comic I recently got into, and I'm very glad I did, is Department of Truth. Your brother, Taylor, from Taylor Talks Comics, recommended it to me. And, you know, something he does, side note, this is not a knock on Taylor, because, you know, he's family and he's friend with me, but he recommends stuff, but only reads a little bit of it. So, like, he'll say, oh, it's cool, so great. Then I'll read a couple in. He goes, oh, I'm not that far. Like, but you just recommended it. So I noticed, and I don't know if do you think it's because of his channels? He wants to be well-versed on everything?
I don't know. He skips around a lot because he reads so many different things and he doesn't like focus it. Where I think I'm like the opposite side of that. Like I get on something and I like laser focus on it and have to read everything on that one subject.
Yeah. And I know sometimes like people want to wait for collected editions, which, you know, there are 4 trades of this comic. They're not hardcover though. I think it's either coming out or is out. If not, check it out. I'm not sure, but I have the 4 trades. I get that, but really love the comic. It is all about conspiracy theories and are they theories? And it's not only how do I explain this without getting saying anything political? It is very timely to read a comic like this. It's not one side versus the other in this. It talks about in general how there are these conspiracies / truths, and the more people believe something, the more it becomes true. That's the overarching theme of this. So we're talking about flat Earth. We're talking about Bigfoot. We're talking about the moon landing. We're talking about JFK. We're talking about so many different things in this, yet tying it all together into a very United States, Soviet Union kind of, you know, post World War II, Cold War kind of thing going on. It's amazing. This is one of those I could not put down. I had to finish a trade. I put the trade down when I was done for the night, but I couldn't stop reading that trade in the middle. So when I finally finished all 4 trades, I said, I got to get a cover. And then I look online, I'm like, oh my God, I've been missing out because I wasn't reading them when they were coming out as issues. There are just some amazing covers, a lot of music inspired ones. There's Nirvana, Metallica, there's just Beatles, just some amazing covers. There's very much some political looking covers, like, you know, Nixon on one, moon landing, that kind of thing. This one was probably my favorite of all of them. It is a homage of Nirvana's Nevermind album with the naked baby in the water, except now it's not so much water as it is blood, or maybe just the pits of hell. We don't know. And some hands coming up to get you there. Still got the money there. The James Tynion IV created the story. I just want to throw that out there. Javon Jordan did the cover. I put it on Instagram and tagged him. He started following me. I thought that was really cool. You know, and he's got some amazing covers too. So Javon Jordan, Jevan Jordan, Izzy's Comics, Virgin Edition, Surprise and Truth number 11. Check out this comic. It is it's unlike anything you've ever read before, and it's something you cannot put down. I can't wait for it to come back up again because I think it's not over. but it was a good like chapter closed.
Yeah, I've read the first. Are they all slim trade paperbacks? The one that I've read was pretty small. So I read
Yeah,
that.
they're all about the same. I think they're all about 6 issues. You know.
Yeah, so I read the first trade. I'm definitely going to be reading more at some point. But
Yeah.
all the like rock inspired covers are super cool.
They're really cool. Yeah, the rock ones are really cool. There was a Metallica and Justice for All cover. That's really cool.
The Doors cover is the one that I was kind of looking at.
But
every time I find it, it's really expensive. So
yeah. Oh yeah. So this one was I will say the most I've ever spent on a slab. It was $130, I believe. It was $130. But I really wanted it. It's hard to get. I saw people selling just the comic for $60.
Yeah.
Without a 9.8 grade. But yeah, the trades, you just want to read it. These are like, I mean, I think retail 17, you could probably get them for 13 or 14. There's only 4 of them. And I know they're going to, continue, but yeah, great comic. Department of Truth. Could not put it down. Great stuff. Last one on my list. This one, not so much about the cover itself as the actual comic, but I did get this one Slab, the first one I bought it Slab rather. Lazarus is the comic. If anything, if you wanted to talk about a Game of Thrones-esque story, I know it's like a overused thing about using references, but you basically have a modern day, relatively modern day, maybe like 30, 40 years past, 100, maybe 100 years in the future. That's not like crazy future. And I haven't read this in a while, so sorry if I'm a little off on the references. Side note, they just have another trade release because I was a little sporadic on the comics because they were sporadic since they started doing it again. So I got to get back caught up again. But so I'm a little behind on that. But you have these different houses. So that's the kind of maybe as Game of Thrones element, but it's the entire world. So you've got America, Europe, whatever, but everything is divided off into different sections owned by a family. So there's the family itself. And so if you're in the family, so think of like the Trump family or the Clinton family, you're in the family. So you're obviously at the top level of ownership. And then you have the people that directly work for them. And then you've got like essentially the peasants, almost like slaves to a point where they're just begging for any little bit of food or anything. And they're treated very poorly, a huge, difference in how people live in the classes. But each family has what they call a Lazarus, and that is their negotiator, for lack of a better term. So they are a fighter of some sort, a assassin, trained killer type, and that's the one they send. So if something has to be done, they've got a Lazarus, and they're not. I mean, they're people. They've got their own, emotions, everything, but they may have some enhancements done to them to make them stronger, smarter, live longer, those kind of things. And so this follows the story of the Lazarus of the main house in it. This is the first issue. It was I don't believe this was a reprint. I bought it thinking it might have been. I paid this actually, wait a minute. This was not a purchase Slab. Sorry for the off on the theme there you mentioned earlier, Brian. I totally thought it was. I bought the comic for $10, sent it right off, and was happy with the 9.8. Totally forgot about that. I thought this was. I don't know why I thought that, but this is the first issue, and it's a different version on here than the original one. But Lazarus is a really fun comic. Greg Rucka. I would say, if anything, compared to the others, this might feel a little political at times, not modern day political, but just as far as, the stuff they talk about and how they treat people. But I think it's done very well. And I remember when I got into this comic, it was right around just before, I think, COVID. I just was amassing a ton of books at that time. And it was weird because I got to the end of the 6+1 trades. The newest one is called 7, but it was actually 6+1, the other one. But I thought it was done. And then I got to it and something, a huge cliffhanger. I'm like, oh. And then I look online and Greg Rucka, the writer's like, this is only, I think he said 25% of the story up to that point that I thought was done. I thought the series was done. And I'm like, oh, we've barely scratched the surface. So I can't wait to get back into it. This is actually the new book. I just bought this from my local store, Mayhem, a week ago. I didn't even know it existed because I have the comics that go into this, except for one. They were, like I said, they were very sporadic. When this came back out again, it'd be an issue and then 6 months of nothing, then an issue and then 2 months, then an issue and 9 months. It was just all over the place. And I had a hard time remembering which ones I had. I didn't want to read them because I don't want to read an issue and then have to wait several months to read another issue. So I don't even know if what I have corresponds. But now that I have this book, I can feel good about getting back into it compared to the other ones there.
I think they recently announced some kind of oversized book for that as well.
Okay, that would be one to get. Yeah, it's really good. Here's the first trade, just exactly like the the issue there. But yeah, it's a really fun story. It's another one of those where it kind of feels like this could be real in in not too long from now, as far as families having that much power and control over a certain region. And it's not just a country either. It's like, a section of America and part of Canada and Mexico. It's almost like, looks like time zones at times. It's not though, but it's just the division lines are different. There's the other really cool thing they do. Let me see if they do it in this one. If they don't, let me look really quick. And I like when, when comics give you a quick recap, at the beginning of something. I like that. And I'm sure a lot of us do. But what this book did very well was it would not only give you a recap, but it would give you like some of these kind of things, like a cast of characters of sorts, who's part of what family, who's in what group, that kind of thing. And I wonder if it even had a really cool map in it of like, kind of like the lay of the land in there. I'm sure. Oh, this is sort of one where it talks about different conflicts and things going on in there. But I like all that kind of extra stuff in comics where you can, if you're presenting me with a world that you created, I want to be immersed in that world. I want to know, so when I'm into things like, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, those kind of things, I want to know about the world. I want to know about who's in what, even if you don't cover it in the comic, I want to know in case you do. But this one does a very good job of keeping you in the loop of things.
No, all that kind of extra stuff just helps make the reading experience better too. Like I just finished Fade Out by Ed Brubaker. In the front of that, it has that same cast of characters and like little images of them. Well, in that story, there's like a blonde bombshell in Hollywood in the 40s who dies and is replaced by another blonde bombshell. So at times it's kind of confusing reading it, but I could always flip back okay, it was that one. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Supposed to be Marilyn Monroe or no?
No, just somebody still just getting going.
But you're saying just kind of keeping it, because if there's timelines in a book and there's a lot of characters in a book, why wouldn't you want to give some background? Why wouldn't you want to remind people who everybody is? We're not talking about well-known superheroes here. We're talking about you asking a reader to become immersed in your world. So the more info you can give, the better experience. I agree. So Saga, Lazarus, Department of Truth, all three amazing books and all three amazing slabs for my collection. Love me some Slab and Tell episode 1.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing with us. I really like this format a lot. I think Slab and Tell is a lot of fun. I hope other people do. If they do, comment down below, and I could definitely see this becoming a series, and we could continue doing this.
Hashtag Slab and Tell.
That was a real American Brian. And now you know, because knowing is half the Brian.